Hey guys, it's me. It's Javin. Episode 2. Look at that. Consistency. So I looked in and the first topic that was posted in there, I do want to try to go through in order of things being posted in there so that no one feels like they've been skipped or anything like that. So the first thing in there says favorite video game and the game that had the biggest impact on you. And in order to really answer that, I feel like a couple of things need to be addressed because I feel like my answers there, outside of super recent answer, will be kind of like, what is that? Or what is this thing? So I'm thinking that with that one question or line of questioning, we actually probably have a couple episodes worth of content, especially if I really drag it out. So I think that's what we're gonna do. That said, we're going to talk about my gaming history first. I feel is a good way to start that, and it'll kind of lay the groundwork for everything else that would go into, favorite games and biggest impact or most influential game kind of stuff. So I think that the best way to start that is to just kind of lay the groundwork for this is my history in gaming. I did not really have access to games growing up. My parents were very go outside and play type of people, or don't you have music to be practicing type of people, because me and my brother did grow up in a musical family and constantly had some new instrument. Not constantly, but we had multiple instruments that we learned along the way. We started out, both of us, me and my brother, with piano, and then from there went into woodwind instruments. I took up the alto saxophone, my brother played the clarinet, and then as time went on, and there were guitars in the house for a while, so we both poked at the guitars. I eventually decided I wanted to play the bass. Point is, we had instruments or playing outside as this is what you should be doing. You don't need to waste your time doing video games, so there's just not going to really be video games in the house. Every Friday, back when the Sci-Fi Channel had good shows, or was a thing, is Sci-Fi Channel still a thing? I don't know. I don't watch television. Every Friday, my mother would take me and my brother, and we would all go to her sister's house, because her sister lived out here where we are, lives, still. She lives out here where we are, so we would go over to her house, and the two of them would watch whatever sci-fi show they were watching at the time. They had a few that we watched as time went on. And me and my brother and our cousin, her sister's son, would go to his room, and he had a Nintendo 64. So the Nintendo 64 is kind of my starting console. But I only really had access to it once a week, because that only happened on Fridays. So you'll hear me say it all the time, and I'll probably say it a couple times throughout this episode. I'm not good at games. I'm not. I never had the chance to develop those skills because I didn't really grow up gaming, or I didn't grow up gaming in the sense that most other kids grew up gaming to be able to develop those skills. I definitely played games growing up, but there was no real consistency or ownership of most of the games to the point where I would have had a chance to develop any kind of skill along that line. And the games that I did own or have consistent access to based on my skill nowadays, I feel aren't going to really surprise people. But yeah, so started with that. Had a computer at the house that was basically for homework. That's kind of what it was. You know, it had stuff like Solitaire and Minesweeper and Pinball. I remember playing the old Pinball game. That was me and my brother's shit. We went in on that. Pinball whenever we got a chance. Because that was fun, and that was one of the only, like, things that we had that wasn't something that we could just do. If I wanted to, I could have sat there and gone through the setup process of getting a Solitaire game ready, and I could have sat there and played Solitaire. We didn't have a pinball machine. Pinball was the exciting thing in the house. And then we had stuff like educational games. We had a couple of Jumpstart games. We had a math-focused one. We didn't really get any play it for fun kind of games, unless our dad got a game that he just wasn't interested in after getting it. I remember at one point he bought this EA bundle because he wanted a James Bond game that came inside of it. So as a result, me and my brother, by proxy, gained ownership of the Need for Speed game that was in there, the Lord of the Rings Return of the King game that was there, and Roller Coaster Tycoon or something like that, City Tycoon, one of those games, because I think that came in that pack as well. But so that was kind of the only way that we ever really got any new games, was if he got a game, he decided he wasn't interested in it. But for the most part, PC gaming also wasn't really something that really happened a lot for us. We weren't becoming the next Space Pinball Champions, you know? It just wasn't happening. And I kind of poked at it earlier. The games that I'm good at, there are reasons I'm good at those games. Whether it's because that's what I had available to me, so it's what I played all the time and I enjoyed playing them, or because it's something that I put a bunch of time into now that I have access to more things because I'm more of my own person and I had money to invest into whatever thing. But that's jumping ahead in the story. Can you even get Space Pinball anymore? It doesn't come on... It's not there by default. I don't know if it's available to download anywhere. I mean, I'm sure it is, actually. If you put any kind of effort, you could probably find it. You could probably find all of those old games. You could find Minesweeper. Minesweeper is available online. Solitaire is available in that stupid, god-awful Windows cards game thing that you have to... How do you add in-game currency to Solitaire and Free Cell? Like, what the actual... What? Come on. That's... What? Got a handheld from a friend of mine, and didn't really have access to that outside of brief periods throughout the day, during the week. Didn't really get to get things for it for a long time. Yeah, we're definitely doing an entire episode focusing on my handheld experience, because that's just a weird and sad string of events. It really is. There were no consoles in the house until the PlayStation 4 was coming out, so we got a PS3. Blockbuster was shutting down, and Hollywood Video... Well, no, Blockbuster was gone. Hollywood Video was shutting down. Netflix was the new thing. And a part of the Sci-Fi Fridays that I mentioned earlier, where me, my mom, my brother would go over to my aunt's house, a part of that was, outside of watching the couple shows that they did, we would also stop at Blockbuster or Hollywood Video when that became a thing, and pick up a couple of movies. One for her and her sister, one for me and my brother, and then one for me, mom, and my brother to watch back at home. So when those were shutting down, Dad wanted Mom to still be able to watch and view things, rent things, whatever. So he's like, we're going to get her Netflix. Netflix is the new thing, and we're going to get her a PS3 to do it on. Because the PlayStation 4 had just come out, so the PS3 was nice and obsolete and ready to be purchased by people who weren't trying to buy gaming consoles. that came with, God, what was the series called? It's got Nathan Drake, I think is the character's name. Uncharted, thank you. Yeah, it had Uncharted, the first one, and it had Little Big Planet. So we had access to those games within a time window, which we'll leave that whole thing for when we're actually talking about console gaming. So there was the PlayStation that we didn't really have games for, and in the meantime, our computer had recently gotten a bit of an upgrade because of other stuff that was going on with the computer. And so that functioned, and we started to do more games there. I didn't really do a lot of computer gaming until I bought myself my first machine with the help of Tech95, my brother, who gifted me for Christmas one of the parts for it. And that kind of was like, all right, cool. We gotta build something for this. This isn't going in that old shitter piece of equipment. We're making a new computer because we have to. It was like, all right, cool. I need to build something for this then. So he got me a motherboard for Christmas to kind of kickstart the computer making, because it's, one of the more expensive parts. Super props to that guy. So over the course of the next couple months, I saved money and managed to put my own machine together right around the time that I started working with Punktown TV, at the time called ORN, Otaku Rage Nation. We were the people of the Otaku Rage Nation. I had just started working with them, which meant I had just started getting into video editing. I did that for maybe a half a month on the old computer, and then got everything together to put my own computer together, put everything together in March. Super don't recommend doing it that way. What if the motherboard was dead on arrival? That's definitely outside of the period in which you can return it. But got it put together, started doing stuff, started doing more games. Finally started doing Skyrim modded, because it super didn't want to run on the old machine that I had before I built that first PC. And that's kind of where I started actually doing modern games. Up till that point, the most modern thing that I'd really been able to play was something like Minecraft. Doom ran terribly, Skyrim ran terribly, and at that point Skyrim was already 5-6 years old almost. But up till that point, I didn't really have access to a lot of new games or anything, so a lot of stuff that I was playing was older. The Need for Speed game that I mentioned earlier on when I mentioned my dad getting the EA bundle, I played for years. I played that game for years because it's what I had fun playing. Me and my brother obtained a copy of Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, and that was one of the main games that we played for a long time, because we didn't have a lot of other games in general, but we also didn't have a lot of games that worked on our PC. I remember when we got Grand Theft Auto 4, the game just flat out would not properly install. It wouldn't. It did not work on the computer, because the computer it wasn't a great PC. It worked for homework and everything. It was really nice to have, but we didn't have a computer that could run games. So the stuff that we could run, I played a lot of. Brings us to this last summer, because I'd had the PC that I built in 2016 up till very recently. Last summer, decided, because of some stuff that happened, that the computer I was running at the time was not cutting it. I needed something new that could run things better, because the machine that I had was showing signs of slowing down and had very recently kind of shafted me in a big thing that I was trying to work on. Very conveniently, right around tax season, and right around the time that one of these stimulus checks for COVID was coming out. So between my tax return and the COVID stimulus check that I got, I was able to put together the machine that I'm on now, which kind of ushered in the era of me playing newer things. Doom Eternal is one of the few games that I've streamed from one PC to the next. I would go through and try to 100% the levels, which I didn't want to do on stream. Like, I would play the level as best as I could to gather all the things, and then afterwards, I would be like, all right, cool. So that's done. Before next stream, I'm going to get this 100%ed so that we have all the collectibles and everything, so we have as many points as total, so that we can upgrade all of our guns and perks and everything in the game. And just the difference between walking in the game on stream versus off stream, there was a noticeable difference in just the base movement, because the old computer had that much of an issue running the game and streaming at the same time, and I didn't really have another machine to stream from while doing the stream itself. When Skyrim crashed back in the day, that was the end of the stream. Like, I would get computer freezing crashes with Skyrim. Couldn't do anything. So that was basically the end of the stream. I would have to reboot the computer. So I would try to stream that at the office from a separate machine with an external capture card, and that kind of alleviated that. Getting the new PC really opened a lot of doors for me and really changed what I could and couldn't do. Changed what I could and couldn't play. So it kind of had an effect on... This game has been my... Like, I loved this game growing up, but now I can play the new and improved version of it, and I can re-interact with certain franchises that I haven't touched in a while, but it's also allowed me to change. You know, this is what I think about this franchise. Oh, this franchise has kind of done this or that. It's kind of died. This game's a really cool addition to this. I'm so glad they did this with this franchise. I'm happy that that's what it is now. Or, you know, wow, they really killed this. That sucks. That was really cool back in the day. So I finally got to experience that, which wasn't something for me back then. Because, you know, like I said, Grand Theft Auto 4 just flat out didn't work. I didn't get to enjoy any of the changes between San Andreas and 4 because we didn't have any of those games along the way, and the next one in the series just didn't want to run. Me and my brother's gaming history is weird, and I felt like that would be a good place to start any kind of talks or episodes about video games, because to try and talk about what was my favorite game growing up, I feel like to try and talk about that and skip these were the only things we got to play growing up, or try to put both of those into a episode would drag out the episodes and kind of make it hard to focus on any of those one topics along the way. You know, what did I enjoy here? What influenced me there? So I felt like it would be a good idea to start the game talks, and those will now be the next couple of episodes as we go forward with this. I felt like it would be a good idea to start video game influence and video game favorites episodes with this is my gaming history, this is why these things are going to be the way they are, and this is kind of what led me to where I am today, where I now stream a heavily modded Skyrim, or try not to punch holes in the wall in Doom Eternal, you know? Because that's... I very much did not get anywhere near that until super recently. And where I started is so far from it that, you know, there's a lot of jumps along the way that have to be made that I want to give the proper amount of time. So we started here with gaming history. This is where we're going to wrap up for today. Like I said, these things aren't super long. Peace.